This episode is an excerpt of a conversation I had with a client of mine, Nicola, who did a one-to-one coaching program with me.
I was causing a lot of the mental load. I was putting the deadlines on me. I was putting the goals on myself. I was forcing what I wanted to happen as quick as possible. It just lifted, became much lighter. I felt like I had some level of capacity in my system that I could just deal with it in a different way.
Welcome to the Quality of Mind Transforming Business podcast, where we explore the game-changing understanding that can unlock new levels of performance and well-being in the workplace. If you want to be part of the new breed of leaders in business, if you're fed up with the conventional echo chamber, and if you want to be part of a revolution in human potential, then join us to discover the powerful resource that lives before our psychology.
Hello and welcome to the Quality of Mind Transforming Business podcast series. Nicola, you've done some Quality of Mind one-to-one coaching. Before we get into what that was like, can you just tell people a little bit about your background and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely, Piers. So my name's Nicola Merritt. I'm founder, CEO of Quartus Advisory Group. Quartus Advisory specialises in advising clients on mergers and acquisitions. I set up the business back in 2020 during COVID, and we've grown since then to a team of around about 60 across 6 offices in the UK. Before that, I was an accountant at KPMG and other boutique firms.
Thanks, Nicola. Can you first of all tell us a little bit about the context of why you came to coaching in the first place?
Yeah, I think if we step back, Piers, maybe it was about January, February last year. I think it was about 12 months ago. And I was in a position where I felt like I was heading on a very narrow path, and I wasn't quite sure what needed to change. When I was presented with some of the material background from someone that had worked with you, and you talked about this concept of opening the aperture, that really struck home with me, that actually what I needed some help with was being able to take things at a different pace, being able to see the bigger picture and just widen my thinking in a more sustained manner, really, because I felt that I was going so hard at things so quick, almost like bull in the china shop, sort of pushing and pushing and pushing, that I knew that wasn't serving me.
So we can cut to the end bit here and then dig into the details, but what was the sort of overall benefit you had, not just for that aspect that you wanted when you came into the coaching, which was just a wider perspective, but generally life and how you see life and work? How does the mental load feel now compared to 12 months ago?
Well, I think the biggest sort of eye-opener through the process was that I was causing a lot of the mental load. Me, the avatar, if you like, me, the person that I thought I was putting the deadlines on me. I was putting the goals on myself. I was forcing what I wanted to happen as quick as possible. So once I was to be able to step back a bit and to not think about it, and we can come back to that as a concept of having time and space to not think rather than think, it just lifted,
Right.
It became much lighter, or I felt like I had some level of capacity or redundancy in my system that I could just deal with it in a different way.
Yes. And I remember a time we had a conversation where you had started to get used to sort of things being a bit easier and there being less on the mental plate, not necessarily the diary plate, but the mental plate, and almost not knowing whether that was okay or not. Shouldn't I be thinking about it? Because you were a self-confessed sort of overthinker to start with.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it links into purpose as well. You define what your purpose is in life, and that is what you get up and do every day. Yeah, I'm here to do X. My purpose was to drive something hard and keep going and build a business. And when I realized, I guess, that actually that was just happening anyway, I felt like I'd lost my purpose a little bit. like, well, what do I do in this situation? And we talked, if you remember, about actually you've already done the hard yards. You're now just seeing the benefit from it, and that's okay. You can sit back. Whereas I felt quite a burden of guilt for allowing it to develop without me pushing it so hard.
Yeah.
But what was the point of me? Right? Without me pushing it forward, what do I do?
Yes. And that's so common because we get conditioned to think that everything that's great that's happened is because we put in lots and lots of hard work and grind. And the idea that something could emergently just happen through, I don't know, synchronicity or serendipity or just a lovely conversation with someone, and suddenly you find someone who wants to partner with your business or whatever, and that just happens, and it doesn't happen through lots and lots of graft, we can be conditioned to think that's wrong, that's cheating. And then what's the point of me? And then suddenly I've got more time in my hands. What do I do with that spare time? And I know you've already found things to amuse yourself with writing great posts on LinkedIn and inspiring others and all those kind of things. So are you finding it easier now to be less full on, although still very responsible and accountable to the business growth? But are you finding it easier to be less full on?
Yeah, I think I changed my working patterns. I went down to a 4-day week so that I had more capacity to do other things. Trying not to fill that time with work-related things, being out for walks, etc., and spending some time with family and friends, and also spending just some time by myself, enjoying sitting down reading a book, whatever that might be on a Friday afternoon. It's been quite a challenge to accept that room is available to do that. You were undoing concepts that I felt had served me in the past, structures, approaches. And I remember talking to you over the summer and things started to just feel a bit more natural, feel in flow. A little bit easier. I guess the word that Ed used was just more clarity, or I think more self-assurance in what I was doing and the path that I was on. And whilst I came across very confident and could guide and lead and have an approach and deliver it, self-assurance is different to me. And I think that's where it just started to hit that actually I felt quite assured that the path that was on, the journey that was on, where I wanted to take my life, my business, my family, that they were just all heading in that direction and didn't need to keep forcing things all the time. Thriving rather than, trying to survive.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. I often talk about the difference between surviving, striving, and thriving. And then the first one is kind of, there's not a lot going on. The second one is a lot of effort, a lot of psychological grind. It's like to keep your foot on the psychological gas the whole time. Life's very hard. You can almost go on the edge of burnout quite a lot, and people get very used to that.
And you've done that for 25-year career in owning businesses. That's sustained. You've been doing that for a long, long time, and it's a build-up from whilst you may not, people express burnout in different types of ways, but certainly where I got to was that the mental load had just become heavy.
Yes. Yes. And you also mentioned earlier about realizing now that things can change and shift and solve without having to put lots and lots of psychological thinking in. Just say a bit more about how you're finding the flow of that.
Yeah, for me, it's always been a game of chess in business life, motherhood, family. You move one piece, you have to move the next piece. Where do you go? Or maybe it's a jigsaw more than a game of chess. You're just trying to move things around to make everything fit all the time. There's the 4 o'clock in the morning thoughts when you're lying there and right, if I do that, if I don't do that, what would I do? If that was that reaction, how would I respond to this? And I'm just more, I guess the aperture is more open in that situation now. So if I do wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, I can pretty much put it out of my head of I don't need to move everything. I don't need to solve the problem right now. Tomorrow will be another day. We'll see what's in front of us and we'll work it through.
Yeah.
Don't need to be in front of every decision and 2 steps ahead of everyone else.
That sounds like flow. That sounds like a much easier place to be. Yeah. And you also mentioned that this approach challenged some of the structures that you developed as a sophisticated person who's into your growth. You had lots of things that you do, discipline, and what was the most, I guess, challenging part of this approach for you to undo in order to move forward?
Yeah, I think I was going to say my natural disposition, but it's probably my learned position would be quite task driven. I get up in the morning, like to have goals, like to know what I'm working for, coming back to that purpose, like to have short-term goals, medium-term goals, long-term goals, like ticking off a list. Have I done it? Have I achieved something? Again, that's a really very much self-made concepts that you're putting on yourself and then determining whether you've passed or failed at the end of the day, month, year, whatever. I think through this process, what I have done is let go of that structure and know that actually some of the things that you just get up and do in the day, the month, the year, you don't need to set them as a goal. They are just what will naturally emerge and develop. The business will grow. That is what you are there to do. Holidays will happen. You don't need to plan them to the nth degree. So yeah, I was very much, I like structure. That's where it felt comfortable, and to almost take some of that away and say that we don't need as much structure all the time in all aspects of your life. It's not a project that you're trying to manage here constantly. You can live it. I think that's where the difference is manifested for me.
Yeah. And what about control? Because I know in the early days we talked a lot about control and wanting to be in control of everything, and the way to be in control is to be on top of everything and manage it psychologically. What's your relationship with control now?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I guess I think as I've started to trust myself more, then I've got a bit more time and space to just allow myself to trust everyone around me that they're doing the right thing. If we've got something that we need to do and we're all on the right page and we're all aligned and heading towards it, I don't need to be in control of that every 10 minutes checking in, or even every day checking in. We all trust people that things are going to happen, and that you can take your Friday off and go into your thing and things will still happen. So I guess I suppose having a bit more space to be maybe a little bit more articulate, maybe express that clarity of thought with your team, with your family, with your friends. You almost create that space to step back and let it happen, to force it. So do I feel totally comfortable if I left everything out of my control? Probably not.
No.
But do I feel like I can step away and know that things will still happen? I went on holiday in October and turned off my phone for a week to the world and had no internet access, and everything was fine.
Yeah. So there's been quite an impact on your leadership then, and your business and your colleagues there then.
Yeah, I think my leadership style has matured, I would say. Over the last year, I changed my role slightly in what I was doing, which meant I had more time to be in the leadership role rather than sort of feel like a part-time role with other business commitments that I had. I think having that clarity means that you can have more in-depth conversations with people because you've got a bit more time to listen, a bit more thinking time, and a bit more space. You don't need to have the answers right now.
Okay.
You don't need to achieve it by the end of the day.
And just going back to the approach and understanding of quality of mind itself, I mean, you said to start with it, you didn't quite get what we're on about, and it was quality of mind, we start very upstream where we look at the nature of me, thought, consciousness, and that start with you couldn't quite see the relevance. What was it that shifted, do you think, for that to not really make any sense, and then a few months down the line for it to start to turn into benefits?
It is hard to take a particular pivot point, because I think for the first few months, it just felt like, on one hand, don't take this personally, but one hand, it's more like a distraction of, like, I know that I need to move things forward. I have to do this. So why am I spending time with Piers trying to undo what has served me successfully? I'll use that word, to date.
Yeah.
Success, I mean, financial, commercial type success. But at the same time, I knew deep down that mental, physical, longevity, sustainability, what I would say is true success in business, that wasn't being served. So I knew that I was in the room, I was talking to you for a reason. I needed to change my approach. So those first few months were sort of like a battle between, why are you doing this? Carry on. You need to crack on with plan A. Wait there, hold on. Plan A wasn't really working, was it, if we're all honest with ourselves? So I do need to do it in a different way. And then there was just, I guess, small elements. I think I'd said to you, Piers, that I spend a lot of time walking in the Lake District. I'm fortunate enough to live in the Lake District. And when I'm at the top of a fell, when there's no people, no phone signal, that's when I just felt peace. And I was craving that peace.
Yes.
And then after a few months, I wasn't craving it in the same way. I could find peace in noise on a noisy train or in the office. I wasn't really desperate to get away from everything. So I was starting to notice that I just felt more peaceful. Then I probably would say sort of month 5 or 6, I was getting itchy feet again. But why haven't I found the answers to what I was looking for yet? And what was that I was ever looking for? And then as we evolve through the next few months, I guess that's when it hit of, this is a way of life. This isn't a program to fix in a few weeks, or this is about adopting a different approach to how we want to live, how we want to think, how we want to go about business. So I've got to let it develop and find some space to let it develop.
And it's really interesting what you say, that for almost no reason at all, peace just came more available to you. It wasn't just on top of a lovely walk, you could find peace anywhere. And I think because we're so used to making something happen, like, well, I feel peaceful after a yoga session, or I feel peaceful after a walk, or I feel peaceful on a Sunday evening. When peace does turn up for no reason, we find it hard to correlate that or the causation of that. Now, actually, that's just because the self-mind that we've been on overdrive for the last few decades has started to loosen its grip on trying to control and overthink. And, if you like, peace is the release of tension in a way. Peace and pleasure come from when tension dissipates. And that's what happened. But because you didn't do a tool or a technique or a activity to create that peace, it was almost a little bit too easy to dismiss it. So I remember at the beginning of the program, we talked about realization, and I said, this turns up by realization, not application. Can you say a little bit about what that was like for you, about this turning up by realization, not application?
Yeah, for an accountant that works in logic and structures and rules, that's quite frustrating. That you can be doing something and applying it, and nothing's changing. So I think for me, it was probably a matter of being patient and sticking with something, and that sort of inner voice of knowing, like I come back to, knowing that I was having these conversations for a reason. I reached out for a reason. So let's just hold on. If we can't even quite articulate or form what that reasoning is, there was something that was telling me that there was hopefully a different way. I needed to adopt a different way. So a mixture of frustrating, impatient, a little bit of fighting like, why is Piers telling me that what I think I know to be true isn't really true? Why is he putting these ideas in my head? I don't have time to be starting to challenge my view of the world. Compartmentalize that and stick it over there because I've got something else to do as soon as we finish our call.
Yeah.
So I think, it took just a bit more time for me
So
to.
with that in mind, what would you say to someone who'd seen a little bit of quality of mind and likes the idea of it, not really sure quite what it is? And how would you prepare them for them or orientate it? Or what would you say about it to someone who's a little bit curious, but doesn't quite know what it is yet?
Yeah, well, I think first off, you need to have an open mind. And even if the aperture's quite narrow to start off with, you've got to have an open mind and accept that your view isn't always the right view, the only view, and that there are different ways in the world of going about things. So I'd say have an open mind, be patient, but most of all, if you do want to make that change, you've got to find some time to allow the emergence, as we say. So whilst it's not a process to be applied, there are perhaps some ways of going about things that you do need to adopt, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think the open mind piece is key. And obviously you've referenced a couple of times, there was something in you that kept realizing there's something for me to hear here. Even if on the surface it didn't make sense to my logical thinking mind, there was something that brought you back into the conversation that allowed you to be open and patient. So you kept faith with that little inkling you had and didn't drown it out with your kind of instant, this is a waste of time, I'm off. And that kept that openness and that curiosity also, I guess, to put what you thought you knew on pause to try something a little bit different.
And I think motivation, intrinsic motivation often comes from a place of pain, of what something's not worked right in the system. So initially there was probably a little bit of that pushed me along, and then you become a bit more curious of, well, okay, right now I'm starting to see some differences. What happen if I follow this through? And it's just the start of a journey, really, and there's no need to rush it.
And how things future proof, if you want to call it that, do you see this understanding? How do you think it will prepare you and help you for anything that happens in life and work for the next 5 decades?
Knowing that this isn't about a set of tools or a structure, it's quite a leap of faith to say, well, what do I lean on? If something comes at me, what do I lean on? And I guess what I come back to is, what I lean on is just what I know to be true in that moment, which is, the direct inquiry, it's understanding the inner voice, the inner self, the real self. It's coming back to, what do I know to be true right now?
Yes.
That's what I guess is the crutch that I'm holding on to, but that crutch is actually not really a crutch. It's just who we are.
And that's the irony, the paradox, everywhere we want to use, is we realize actually the need for a crutch was created by the thing that doesn't really exist anyway, because we already are it. So and that's what I think you beautifully said there, that actually, although I'd want a crutch or something to rely on, I realize now I don't need it because I already am it. It's already true. Regardless. So therefore the future, there's nothing really that can ever damage that.
And as we said, it doesn't mean that you don't have ambition and don't have things that you want to achieve in the future. Or that's not about taking all those things away. It's just about delivering it and enjoying it and leaning into it in a different way.
And so when you look about how things happen in life, emergence, new ideas, new solutions, new partnerships, new adventures, new creations. Where do you see that they come from now in this sort of flow?
Yeah, from a much wider base, which, you know, if we were to put it in the visual, it is the aperture. It is opening up to other opportunities that you just may never have thought that was on your path. But then you say, well, why not? Who says it's not? So I think, again, a combination of having more of an open mind and creating some space and time that's not filled with thinking allows you to open your eyes and open your mind, really, to opportunities that may always have been there. You've just not noticed them.
Yeah. And for someone who's very vested in their personal professional growth, but normally they would go down the route of trying to find the next hack or tool or you know, and they kind of yo-yo around in their well-being, etc. And they've got lots of structures and discipline. What would you say to them if you had to succinctly invite them to look at something? What would you say?
I think you owe it to yourself to explore and look at alternative approaches, or at least spend some time trying to get to know the real you. So I think you owe it to yourself to explore and get to know who you really are.
And is there anything that would have been helpful for you to know before we started? Luckily, you did stay the distance and you got the benefit, but what would it been? Because this is different to a normal approach, obviously. So what would have helped you to know before you started?
I think on one hand, I didn't want to know too much. I wanted to embrace it, embrace the process without knowing kind of where it was. It didn't need to be a linear approach. It didn't need to be a set program of this is going to happen this quarter, then that quarter, and we'll do this. I suppose knowing that, you would have obviously said it, whether I had heard it at the time.
I would have done, yeah.
You know, perhaps that would have managed my expectations a little more, to be patient.
Yeah.
But you will have said it. I just heard it.
Yeah. And that's interesting, isn't it? What happens to our listening when we're in busy mind mode? So have you noticed your listening shift at all with this?
Yeah. I think I do generally have more time to listen. You know, I've changed aspects of my job where the pressure, immediate deadlines has been taken away from parts of it. And I've made a conscious effort to listen more.
Because listening isn't about time. You could have all the time in the world, but if you've got a noisy mind, there's no room to listen to anyone else, is there?
There's just no capacity to absorb.
So given this can be a very powerful, profound even transformation that people go through, why do you think it's not more mainstream and more common?
It's quite hard. I think I wonder if I'd approached it like this 20 years ago when I was kind of at my peak career, would it have served me then, or would I just have shut it down straight away and got nothing else to lose? I've got a lot of energy. Let's just go for it. So I have sort of gone through that in my mind of is it you get to a certain level of experience, like, you know, lived experience, career experience, certain age, and it just clicks a bit better. And I'm not sure, but it's not easy to unlearn things, and almost would be better learning this approach before we learned everything else.
Yeah.
You know, at a lot earlier age. Yeah. I think it would take out a lot of frustrations that people...
I mean, most people do say, if I'd learned this 20, 30 years ago, it would have served, not only would they've had a longer benefit footprint, but they would have had less to unlearn and less coping and strategizing to survive and strive and thrive in place. So generally, when we talk to youngerish people, they are much more open and close to this because they haven't got so much unlearning to do.
Yeah. And, I've reflected from it personally. I've been quite open that I wasn't totally enamored with maternity leave and being away from the office, and I spent a lot of time trying to develop a career, and then all of a sudden you're out.
Yeah.
And I do wonder if I had understood a little bit more about where I would end up in life, perhaps would have enjoyed that time with my 2 small children a little more, but
Well, there's always opportunity for new levels of presence, however old they are. So but I understand that we can. Well, once someone turns the lights on, we can sometimes spend time at looking what we've kicked over rather than what we can see forward.
Yeah. I don't think you should go through life with regrets. So tomorrow's another day.
So if there were 3 words or short phrases that might describe quality of mind to someone, what would you say?
I'd say self-assurance, clarity, and space.
Okay, thank you. Now, any questions I should have asked you that I haven't asked you that might be useful for people who are listening?
No, I don't think so. You could ask, did I enjoy working with you, Piers?
Well, there's sort of implicit, but I'll ask straight out. What's it like working with the person I'm looking at in the screen right now, as in me, not you, we're on Zoom. So what kind of experience is that? That's a brilliant question. I need to add that in. And honest and candidness, of course. What's it like doing the one-to-one coaching?
I mean, I hadn't been in sort of this coaching style. I've had different exec coaches. I've worked in group exec coaching arenas. I hadn't had this kind of style, and I'm privileged that we did get a chance to meet face to face as well, albeit briefly. And we did a lot of our sessions just talking whilst I was walking around. So we weren't sort of sat and static, and I was out in nature. So look, this was a very different way of going about things, and I think you were very good at encouraging me to just do what I wanted to do. So I'm not sure any exec coaches that I've worked with before have ever suggested that, or I've ever heard of it.
Well, I think because we're trying to point to the very fabric of, to start with at least, the nature of consciousness and thought and reality, it's best to actually do that in real time as we're wandering along in a bit of nature or something. It really helps break the pattern to do some direct inquiry as we're just walking along.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that really made a difference, and it's been a pleasure working with you, Piers.
Well, thank you, and you've been a wonderful client, because I could see sometimes that overthinking mind coming in and kind of really questioning it, but you were never cynical, only sometimes a little skeptical, which is of course great and fine, and you stuck with it and you stayed open, and then the bits started to come through, and I could see it coming a long time before you could, probably, because that's just the nature of what this is like. And then there was some reverse dot joining that needed, but it was great, and I really look forward to seeing what happens next in the chapters of Nicola's business and life. It's fantastic. So thank you very much for being a great client, and thank you for coming and having a chat now, because I think it really helps people hear a bit about what can seem like this slightly, what are we on about? Very profound. Is it too esoteric? Understanding what actually it has very, very practical benefits for life and work. So I appreciate that.
No problem at all.
Brilliant. So listeners, if you're curious to know how you can have some change in your work and your life, then do let us know, and we can take you through our one-to-one programs and group open program offers. Or if you're not quite ready for that yet, but just want to dip your toe in, then we've got some great free resources. We've got a quiz, and we've also got a free short 6-part audio program where you can get a taste of what quality of mind is all about. So listeners, until next time, have fun being curious.
If you enjoyed listening to this podcast and want to know more, check out our website at qualityofmind.biz. And also, feel free to reach out and leave us a review or a comment. Until next time, have fun being curious.